Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Tuesday Night Live with independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, Teresa Harper. I'm located in Oregon in the United States, and I am very happy that you have joined me tonight. So, as you can see, we're going to be using the new online exclusive Arched Wishes, and I'm actually going to pair that with Country Flowers for our first project, which is a card. And then we'll just be using this one on the second one. So let's go ahead and see who's on. And see what we're up to here. It's a beautiful, warm, sunny day here in Oregon. One of those rare spring days. In the mid-70s, actually. It's been a lovely day. But tomorrow comes rain with some possibilities of some severe thunderstorms. So we'll see how that all pans out. And let's see if anyone's on. It is beautiful outside, so can't blame anybody for not jumping on tonight. And I was a minute late, so maybe somebody thought I wasn't going to be here, but of course I am. All right, so I'm going to push those out of the way for now because we don't need those in the way, because we're not using those till the second project. So here we are. I did my pre-order for my catalogs last night, and those say they shipped, but UPS did not receive them. So hopefully I'll have them when we have our live event on April 5th. So I'll have those to hand out. All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to get started here because this first card does have a few steps to it. So let's just get it going, and whoever jumps on later can do so. All right, so we're going to start with, there's a bunch of coloring in this card, and I've done all of it ahead of time because I didn't want you to have to sit and watch me color. So let's bring in our card pieces. We have a piece of basic black cardstock. This is a standard A2 size, 5.5 by 8.5, and I've already scored it in the middle at 4.25. Hello, Lynette. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm so glad to see you. Hope you enjoyed this nice sunny weather today. Get ready for the rain to return tomorrow. Okay, so we've got a basic black cardstock. Then we've got a piece of 4 by 5.25 inch basic white. Let's make sure that I do have that correct. Okay, let's go ahead. We got to get on this right away because we're going to do some embossing, ink blending and embossing, and we need that ink to dry. So let's set our card base aside. Let's start with a little bit of Calypso Coral ink here. And this card came about by, I needed to make a promposal card for my senior grandson. And I made his promposal card, and then I went, hey, I could use that layout design for a card for my live. So here we are. I'm going to set aside Calypso Coral, and we're going to go to Flirty Flamingo. Now, I've already done it, but what you should do before you move on to the next thing is take your inside card base, and I'll just show you. For this, you want a darker hue here on your main piece, and then on your inside piece, you want just a light hue, very light, because you want your recipient to be able to write over the top of it. So this is what I'm talking about. Focal image on the front, inside piece. Okay. Oh, and actually I used the Flirty Flamingo. Huh. So really you would go Calypso Coral. And then we would grab our Flirty Flamingo ink. I'm going to bring that in, go right over the very top of my Calypso Coral. So I want those two colors to blend. And then I would take my Flirty Flamingo on my inside piece and very lightly run that out. It's a good way to clean your brush too. Then we're going to move on to Fresh Freesia. I need to move my brushes as I go, otherwise I'll grab the wrong one, and that would be disastrous. Okay, so we're going to take our Fresh Freesia ink. Let's start with my focal image for the front. Fresh Freesia is a pretty light ink, so you really have to give it some pressure for the front of your card to really get that hue in there. Plus you want to go over the top of the Flirty Flamingo a little bit. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. And then let's see, this is one that you really can't run your brush out on. It's just not dark enough of a hue. Okay, so now we've got some Flirty Flamingo on there. Still could use some more. Boop. There we go. That's good. And then we're going to grab Azure Afternoon. And we're going to take another brush, switch out our panels. Again, I'm going to go over the top a little bit of that Fresh Freesia. Okay. And then I'll clean out my brush. This one, yeah, it's coming. It's coming. You just want the light hue. Okay, so you can see that there. And then we're going to move to Pretty Peacock. I almost feel like I should open up my, what did I do with my pretty, there it is, my Pretty Peacock brush. It's pretty warm in my studio right now, 75 degrees. Okay, so we'll put our Pretty Peacock on, blend that into the Azure Afternoon. Okay, and that's good. And we'll bring that over here, add a little bit on our inside piece. Okay, got that. And then we're going to finish with Night of Navy. Let's get our Night of Navy. And we'll just put that on. Blend that a little bit into the Pretty Peacock. Okay. And there is the focal piece for our front. Okay. And then let's finish off our inside panel. Just a light hue. Okay, now here's the difference between our inside panel and our front focal panel. Okay. All right, so the ink blending is done, and we need that to dry. So let's clean up our mess here. The Glass Mat Studio, I've got the little chamois. Actually, that's quite a big piece of chamois comes, 4 times this size. I love these little chamois because they don't hold a bunch of water and they stay fairly dry, so your glass mat does not feel all wet. which is wonderful. Okay, let's go ahead and do our stamping while those pieces dry. And so this is my stamping piece. This does still feel just a tiny bit damp, so let's just wipe that. We'll bring in Memento Tuxedo Black. And what I did with my Memento ink refill is I got the craft Stampin' Pad, which now they just call white. And it comes uninked, and then they give you a bottle of white ink to ink it. But instead of using the white ink, I use the Memento refill and inked it up. I think the ink works much better in the foam pad rather than the linen pad that Memento provides. Okay, let's go ahead and stamp this down. Okay, and then we need a teapot. So we'll stamp that down. And then we need this batch of flowers. Okay. And finally then for our sentiment is what we need to emboss. So we're not doing anything yet. However, we can go ahead and pull in, well, I already did it. Never mind. I took the happy birthday, which is included in the arched wishes right here, and I stamped that in basic black on that inside panel. So we've got that done. Okay. I'm letting these dry for just a minute before we color. So I don't want my ink to smear. It's pretty warm in here, so it should dry really quickly. Okay, so then we're going to take, you need a piece of basic white. And from the basic white, you need to cut this die from the linked together dies. I love this little trellis die. And then from the arched wishes dies that coordinate with the everyday arches and the arched wishes, I've taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 from the largest here, and I've taped those together with an even border, and I ran that through the die cut machine, and it cuts out a frame. So let's go ahead and pop that frame out of there. So in addition to the inside piece, which is this, you also get that frame. Okay, so you have this piece to use on another project. Set that aside, and we are using this piece. Okay, so again, that is stacking together 5 and 6 from the largest of the everyday arches dies. You get 10 of these, and they're all layering. So I just put some mint tape and held them together after I laid them down how I wanted them. Let's go ahead and stick this back in here so it doesn't get lost. And now we have this piece, okay? So this piece is going to fit the side of this lattice piece perfectly. So we're just going to lay that down like so. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the back of this. Well, I am if I can get them. I left my glue bottle open earlier, which you shouldn't do, especially when it's this warm in your studio. So I'm just going to put some Tombow multi-purpose liquid glue along here. And I'm going to grab my silicone sheet, and hopefully I don't jiggle the camera too much because it's stuck right underneath my camera stand. So I put that down, and I'm going to get that glue ball off my finger. And then I'm just going to line this right up so those are perfectly aligned. And with the multi-purpose liquid glue, you have a minute or two to get that moved into place before you give it a really good press and put that down. So what I'm going to do is I'm happy with the way that looks. So I'm just going to take and give that a good press so that it will adhere. Okay. Now this looks kind of silly, right? It's not the look I was going for. So I'm just going to take and come in here with my paper snips, go under the edge of the arch, and remove the pieces that are showing around my arch. I don't want to go too deep because I don't want to cut the inside of the arch. So I'm just laying my scissors along that edge and giving that a trim. And then this is what I'm left with. Okay. Of course, you can do those in any colors that you wish. Now, let's go ahead and I'll tell you what I did for colors. I'm not going to color all this because there's a lot of coloring. Okay. And I used a lot of Stampin' blends. So these are the ones that I used. Okay. This goes with the dark fresh freesia flower. Okay, so I used light and dark pecan pie on the stool there. Started with my dark and then went to my light. And then I ran it through the die cut machine with the corresponding die, and this is what I got. Okay. I don't like these two white pieces on this particular die cut, so I'm going to take my paper snips here, and I'm just going to run this up, and very carefully, I'm going to snip that out. You could leave it on yours if that doesn't bother you. I didn't like it on mine. To each his own, though. Some people don't care, and some people hate fussy cutting so much they won't do it. So there we are. I'm going to trim that up just a smidge more there. Make me happy. All right. And now I've got my stool. Okay. For my teapot here, I used the light and dark pool party to color that. And then I die cut it with the corresponding die from Country Flowers. So that's there. This is what we have. Okay. And then for the florals, I'm going to show you how I did the yellow flower because I used 3. Okay. I started with Dark Daffodil Delight. And I went up here where the petals overlap, and I put in some dark. Okay. Petals are overlapping. There we go. And then I went with my light Daffodil Delight. And I touched on that and moved the color up a little bit more. Not all the way. And then I added a little bit at the bottoms of these petals that don't overlap with anything. And then I finished it off with the light lemon lolly and just blended those colors in. Okay, so that's that. For the large flower here, I'm going to move these out of the way. And actually, I'm going to bring in my color wheel because it's so much easier for me to do it this way. I'm going to bring in my color wheel. I took my dark fresh freesia and I start in the middle of a petal and just flick color out. And why I'm not using the wheel, I don't know. This is the beauty of the wheel. Okay, then I went in and this petal overlaps that petal. There and there. Okay, so I've got that. Then I take my light fresh freesia and then I'm going to come back and fill those in. Just blend that color in. Okay. Just like so. And then while I had my dark fresh freesia out, I should have run this right along here, that center part. And then I'm using the Natural Tones Deep SU100 right there in the very center. Hello, Cynthia. Hello, Tracy. Okay, so I've got that. Now, for the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 roses here, I've used light and dark flirty flamingo. And I went in these spots here where the petals overlap and did that. Okay, and I did that on all of them. And then I went back with the light flirty flamingo and just colored in the rest of those petals. Okay, that's how I did those. And then for the large flower here, I started with the dark Calypso Coral. And again, I just took some dark along the edges of those petals. Okay, then we go back with the light. And I'm going to fill that in like so. Okay, and then for the center here, I'm just going to put in a little of the light. Let that dry for just a second. And then go back and cover that whole piece again. And by putting those 2 layers on, I'm just going back and blending those light to dark there. I didn't like how that looked. Okay, so then I've got that. And for the very center of that, I'm going to take my light Daffodil Delight and put it in the middle there. Okay. And then for the leaves, I've used light and dark Pretty Peacock. And all I did with these was just take and flick a little bit in the center there with the dark on all of those. And then go back and fill that in. Just a little flick of color. Okay, and I did that with all those leaves. Okay, now let's set this aside because we're done with our coloring. And here are our flowers. Okay, so now we've got those. And of course, there is a die cut for those as well. All of those are in the Country Flowers dies. And so you can easily cut the teapot, this stool, and that flower. Okay. All right, so these are now ready to go. Let's set that aside. And let's move on back to our piece here. Should be dry now. And we're going to make sure it is dry. I'm just going to put a little bit of light heat on it from my heat tool. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in my stamp positioning tool. And I've got Cheers to Another Year of You. And that is from the Arched Wishes stamp set right here. And it perfectly fits the outside of our ring, or of our lattice piece here. So let's go ahead and put that in. Well, actually, let's bring out our embossing powder and our embossing additions tool tray. And we need black. So let's grab that. Now this is an older embossing additions tool tray. I have the new one too, it's gray. But I had this one on hand, so I'm going to use it. I like to keep one for black and one for white. Okay, so let's just go ahead and give this a good rub with our embossing buddy. And that's just going to remove anything from that black sticking. And really with this inked background, I want to make sure I've got it well covered. Okay, and we'll put this back in our positioner here. Get our Versamark. And as hot as it is, I'm going to go ahead and open up my black and try to do this quick. It's pretty warm in my studio. And then we'll, oops, I just stuck my finger there, but that's not where our cinnamon's going to be, so we should be fine. Okay, so we'll ink that up in Versamark. Give it a good inking. And then I'm going to give that a good press. Make sure I have that well inked. I'm not pressing too hard because I don't want to distort my letters, but I do want to make sure that that makes really good contact with my paper. Set this aside. Bring in the black ink. Pour that on. Give that a tap. Take a look to see if we have any stray powder. I'm going to go ahead and put the cap on that and set this way away. And then I'll bring in my paintbrush. Okay, well, I've got a smaller one right here. I just see a little dab right there. I don't want. Everything else looks pretty good. Let's heat up our heat tool. Oh, I see a couple more. Hang on. I don't want those. Not that these will probably matter because they're going to be covered anyway, but I don't want them there. Okay, so let's give that a good heat up. And then we'll go from the back, heat up that card, watch that melt, move it on. Okay, take a look at that. Make sure we got everything good. That all looks nice and shiny. Oh, there's a little spot right there on the 2. Let's go ahead and give that a quick run from the front. And now we should be good. Okay, so let's go ahead and add this to our card base, which again is basic black. By heating that from the back, that did not warp as much. So let's go ahead and put, I'm going to use more seal than I normally would because it's heat embossed and it does warp a tiny bit, so I'm going to make sure that's going to lay down. Then we're going to add this to our card base. Give that a good press. Okay, there we go. Now let's go ahead and add our lattice piece, and as you can see, that's going to fit in there quite well. So again, I left that open, silly me. Let's see if it dried up because it's so hot in here. I'm just going to put just some little dots in intersections here and then along the outside edge a little bit. I don't need to hit every intersection. Just a few to make that lay kind of flat. Okay, that I'm going to put one over here on the edge there. Make sure I got that. Okay, now let's go ahead, put this down here, like so. Give that a press, and again, I'm going to use the back of my block. A little thread of paper there I want to get out. Okay, so we've got that. And now we're going to take our stool. We're going to set it down here so it looks like it's a little bit in front of the arch. I'm going to grab a Stampin' Dimensional or 2. Stick that along the top. And add this to our card here. Try and center that up a bit. There. And then I'm going to take a little bit of liquid glue and go under the legs of the stool. And just give that a press down. Okay. And then we're going to take our teapot here and we're going to put a little bit of glue at the bottom and a dimensional up here. We're going to adhere that right onto the front part of our bench there. our stool. Okay. That dimensional backing out of there. And finally, we're going to add our flowers. Okay, so we're going to put some dimensionals at the top here. And then we have to be a little bit strategic. I want one over here. And I'm going to take a mini. Actually, I'm going to take a little piece of the mini right here. Just the edge piece. And this is going to go here, and I want this to go right there. Okay, and I think I should be good. And we'll just set that down here like so. And we have one more thing to do. And you guys, I should have done this ahead of time, but I didn't. Oh, wait a minute. I do have a piece I could use right here. This is the iridescent trim that you know, or iridescent stripe trim that I love to cut up. It's a 1/2 inch, and I don't like how fat it is, so I like to take it and let's see how this looks. I'm going to use this piece that has 3 of them. This is like 2 strands, and this is 3. So we're just going to grab that. Uh-oh. Oh no, no. My nails fell out. That is not good. Okay, we'll take our bow jig and a double here. Tie this up. And oh, I didn't put this on here. I don't know what I'm thinking. I didn't use this because I couldn't figure out a good spot to put it. Never mind. That's for the next one, I think. Okay, so let's finish this off with some gems. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Laura. Okay, so we've got the textured dot, adhesive back textured dots. And I'm going to take a large one. I'm going to stick in the center of the fresh freesia flower there. And then I'm going to scatter these 2 small ones out here, like so. Let's add that inside to our card, which is this piece. And our card is now finished. All right. So there's card number 1. I hope you like that. Let's move on to project number 2, which is a 3D project. And this is how I finished off my envelope. You guys, you know, I'm loving this sharing, loving, crafting stamp set that's in the online exclusives. It makes the envelopes so quick and easy. No thinking, no coloring, just easy, quick, and no naked envelope. Okay, so let's move a few things out of our way. And we'll get on to the 3D project. And luckily, I was afraid this one might take a long time, so I did a bunch of prep for it too. Okay, so here are the supplies we need for this project. I've got my template. I've got one of the arches, and this arch is the, let's see, it's the next smaller one from what we just used. So it is 1, 2, 3, 4 from the smallest. Okay, so we've got this. And then I've got the fourth largest of the arches, and I've cut 2 of those in Moody Mauve. Okay, so I've cut 2 of those, Moody Mauve. And then I brought in my scoring tool. And I laid these in my scoring tool like so. And I scored it at 1 inch. Okay, 1 inch. And I did the same thing with this one. Scored those both at 1 inch from the bottom. I might need to do that again, actually. Let's try it again. Let's do the 1 inch right there, because you can't hardly see it right now. Okay, so I've got my 1 inch score. And while we have the scoring tool out, let's go ahead and score our piece of Moody Mauve. So this box piece is 4 3/4 inches by 4 inches. We're going to start on the 4 3/4 inch side, and we're going to score at 1 inch. Flip it around 180 degrees and score it at 1 inch. Then we're going to turn it to the 4 inch side and score at 1 1/2, and flip it around and score it at 1 1/2. Okay, and that is all the scoring that we need to do for our box. Okay, now let's go back to our little pieces here. We have them scored at 1 inch. And then I took my new embossing folder that my friend Tracy talked me into. Oh, thank you, Tracy. I thought that turned out pretty cool that way. So the plaster painting 3D embossing folder, this is one of those huge ones. It just so happens because it's huge, you can put 2 of these in here at the same time. So what I did was I took these and I put them in here at the very edge and at the 1 inch score mark. Okay, I left this bottom part hanging out. And then I did the same thing over here. Laid those up. Closed that down carefully. And then I ran that through my cut and emboss machine, just like that. Okay? And when I got done, I have this lovely texture. Okay? Ah, Jen, I'm glad you liked that card. Okay, so this is going to be a box. So let's go ahead and fold on our score lines and burnish. This box is 2 3/4 inches wide by 1 1/2 inches tall by 1 inch deep. So we're going to take, and on the short side, the 4 inch side, we're going to cut up at the score line on the large rectangle and do the same thing here on the left so that you're on the large rectangle. I'm going to angle cut this just a tiny bit and do this one too while I'm here. And then I'm going to flip it 180 degrees and I'm going to repeat that. Like so. And now this looks like our template. Okay? So there's our template with all of our measurements if you want to take a screenshot. And then we're going to come in with some tear and tape. And I'm going to put tear and tape on one large rectangle and the center square tab. Okay, I'm going to put that on the outside edge. And I'm also going to put it on the inside here, just so that this stays nice and taut. And then I'm going to do the same thing here and here. This is why I use the sharp edge. And I'm going to repeat that down here, right next to that score line. And right next to the outer edge. And again. And again. Now you could use liquid glue. I don't like liquid glue for this because it's just messy for me. Now I'm going to burnish down my tear and tape, because that's how you get tear and tape to really adhere, is to give it a good burnish and set it into that paper. Now I'm going to remove all of that tape. You could remove just the center pieces first if you choose, and then remove the other pieces later, but I've made so many boxes that I don't have any trouble doing it this way. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is the pieces that don't have tape are going to come up, okay? Just going to bring those in. I'm going to fold up the square tab and the square tab. Just fold it right up, just like that. And then I'm going to fold this piece over everything. Line up my scored edges over here and my top and bottom. And press that in. And then I'm going to repeat that over here. Okay, you really want to make sure your top edge is even. Okay, and then we're just going to give that a good burnish. And now we have our box. Okay, now this has the smooth sides, so I'm going to use this for my front. Not that it really matters because you're not going to see it. And then I'm going to take these two pieces. Here I am going to use liquid glue. And I'm just going to put some liquid glue here in a little rectangle, not right up to the score line, but pretty close. And then I'm going to adhere these together, making sure that I leave just a little wiggle room at that where the two score lines come together. I don't want to set the two score lines on top of each other. I want just a little bit of a gap here. Okay, give that a nice press. And then I'm going to add this to my box. And for these, I actually prefer to put my adhesive on the box bottom. Set this in here. It should line right up with the dots, the pierced dots that are on that, the arches. Put those on. Okay. Got that set. Give that a burnish. And then I'm going to add some glue to this box and fold that down flat. Press that in. Glue on this side. And again, I'm just going to lay that down, close it up, put my fingers in there, give it a good burnish, because you are adhering to a 3D surface there. Okay, and there is our box. Okay, so what fits in our box? I knew you were going to ask that, so I have a couple of things for you. I happen to have the York Peppermint Patty. This is from the Easter thing, and then a Reese's Milk Chocolate and Peanut Butter Egg. Both of those will fit right in there. Okay, so you could easily make this into an Easter treat. That's not what we're doing, but you could. And your other option that I found, of course, I'm sure there's lots of things. For every day, you can do the dark Reese's Peanut Butter Cup Thins, which, you know, can't go wrong with that, right? Dark chocolate and peanut butter, yum! And you can get 3 of those in that box. Okay, let's go ahead and decorate this up. So we're going to take that smaller arch. This is arch number, what did I say, 4? Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4th from the smallest. We're going to bring this arch in. We're going to line this up at the 1/2 inch mark. 1/2 inch right there. And give that a little trim. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and add, let's see, I've already taken, you need to stamp, but we're running out of time. You need to stamp 3 of the large balloons from Arched Wishes right here. Unfortunately, there's no dies, so you have to hand cut them. Sorry. And then I also cut 3, or stamped 3 of the just the balloons, okay? And I colored those too. So I've got 2 Moody Mauve and 1 Bubble Bath. And you're wondering what I'm going to do with these. Well, these are going to stick off the back of our thing, and I didn't want this to show. That's why I did these extra little pieces. Of course, you don't have to. So I'm just going to put some glue on the back of my little balloon here. And I'm going to glue that to the back of my balloon, okay? And what that's going to do is if somebody looks at the back, they're not going to say, oh, look at that ugly back. Not that they probably would anyway, but you know. I don't want an ugly back, so this is what I'm doing. But if you're not a fussy cutter and you don't want a fussy cut, then just leave your backs. Okay? Or what you could do is just glue a second piece of paper before you cut it out, and cut it out all at once. That would be a efficient way to do it. Not the way I did it, but it would be an efficient way to do it. Okay, so let's turn this last one over. And there we go. Okay, now of course these are a little heavy for this little teeny tiny string. So in order to fix that, I came in and I'm going to glue these to the edge of my box. So I'm going to start with my bubble bath. And I'm going to put a glue dot right at the bottom of that. Right there. And maybe one right next to it. Okay, just to give it some stability. So I've got 2 glue dots. And then I'm going to come in and I'm just going to stick this right here, making sure that I get the glue dots on there, and I don't have any. Yep, I'm good. So just stick that there like that. Okay. Then I'm going to bring another glue dot. I'm going to bring this in here, and I'm going to take a look at that, how I want it. Okay, about right there, so I can put a glue dot here. And here. Let me get my candies out so I can get my fingers in there. And then I'm just going to stick this right here like so. Okay. And then I've got one more that we're going to go ahead and stick in here. About like that. So let's again, right at the bottom, we're going to take 2 glue dots. And stick that in here like this. Arrange our balloons how we think we want them. I want that to go just a little bit lower like so. Okay? Now I've got those on there. I'm going to give them a good press. I don't have any stickies out the back. Okay. Now let's go ahead. We're going to add our cupcake. I got a glue dot on my fingernail, you guys. Hang on. This wants to be sticky. Okay. We're going to add our cupcake to the arch here that we cut. And we're going to do that with with dimensionals because this is a 3D project and we can go as thick as we like. Okay, so we're going to add this to our arch like so. And before I give that a press, I'm going to take a look and see how that looks on here. Yep, that's what I want. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and press that down. And now I'm going to take some more dimensionals because again, it's 3D and I can, so I will. Make this really pop out from the box. Okay, then we're just going to take this, center it down here, line that up, make sure it's not impeding our bottom and sticking. We want to make sure that that's even. And then when we like it, we'll give it a press. And finally, we're going to finish with a happy birthday. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, this is not a Stampin' Up! Happy birthday because the happy birthday that came with this set was not the right size. And I didn't feel like fussy cutting a happy birthday, so I cheated. Yep, I cheated. So I'm going to put a dimensional here, and I'm going to double stack that. Which means I'm putting 2 dimensionals on top of each other. And that's because I put dimensionals here and here. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this end. Take off that back. Stack another dimensional on there. I'm going to put a little bit of liquid glue right in the center here. Make sure I have it right side up, because that would be really bad if I didn't. And I'm going to center this on here. Oh, and hope that works for my dimensionals. It might not. They might not. There we go. Got it. Got it. Okay. There we are. Then take a little bit of Wink of Stella. Put some on your frosting. Some on your candle. Let's fill it up. And now we have a cute little birthday treat made with the Everyday Arches and the Arched Wishes stamp set. Okay, everybody, that's what I've got for you today. Let's bring back in that card we made. Thanks. I was actually inspired by the box by Rhonda Wade. I saw her make a box like this out of the arches, but she used a bigger arch. And of course, I had to resize everything to fit my arch. And then I decorated it how I wanted it. And this is what we have. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. Hope you can find those useful. I'll bring that. Let me put this back, the template back in here for just a second in case you want it. And then here's our projects. I will see you again on Thursday night on YouTube with another live. I don't know what we're doing, but we'll do something fun. And then back again here on Facebook on Tuesday night. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Be sure to like if you like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and give me a thumbs up. I appreciate it. It helps my channel so much. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for all your kind words.